Every age builds machines. Some build machines of steel and fire, others of wires and code. But beneath them all lies the oldest and most perfect machine ever created, the obedience machine. Unlike the gears of industry or the algorithms of technology, this machine is made of people. It runs on fear, hope, guilt, habit, and the longing to belong. And it has one purpose only: to make humans love their chains. Think of it. For thousands of years, the majority of people have lived and died in obedience. They were told when to work, when to pray, when to fight, when to kneel. They were told what to believe, what to say, what to desire, even what to dream. And rarely did they rebel. On the contrary, they defended the very structures that enslaved them. They celebrated their rulers. They fought for their masters. They passed down the same chains to their children, not as shackles, but as heirlooms. How does this happen? Why does humanity not simply tear down the machine? The answer is cruel but simple: because obedience feels safe. Chains feel familiar. Freedom is terrifying. Most people do not want freedom. They want comfort, predictability, the illusion of order. And so they worship their rulers, their laws, their gods, their bosses, their systems. They love their chains because their chains protect them from the abyss of choice. Nietzsche saw this clearly. He called it the morality of the herd. He warned that humans prefer to submit, to dissolve themselves in the safety of the crowd, rather than face the terror of standing alone. To think for yourself is difficult. To obey is easy. And when obedience is wrapped in the disguise of morality, religion, patriotism, or progress, it does not even feel like obedience. It feels like virtue. This is the genius of the obedience machine. It convinces its slaves that they are free. It convinces them that their chains are self-chosen, that their submission is righteousness. A worker chained to his desk believes he is virtuous for sacrificing his life for responsibility. A soldier dying on the battlefield believes he is noble for obeying orders. A believer kneeling in prayer believes he is holy for surrendering his will. They love their chains because they cannot imagine life without them. And every system of power knows this. Kings, priests, politicians, bosses, they do not rule by force alone. Force is crude, unstable, temporary. The true art of power is to make people obey willingly, to make them desire their chains, to make them defend the machine. That is why governments call obedience loyalty. That is why corporations call slavery career. That is why religions call submission faith. The names change, the masks shift, but the machine remains. You can see it even now, in the modern world. People complain about their rulers, but they still vote for them. They complain about their jobs, but they still defend the system that exploits them. They complain about their gods, but they still kneel in fear of losing heaven or gaining hell. The obedience machine does not fear criticism, it feeds on it. Because even when people grumble, they rarely escape. They tighten their own chains, and then boast about how noble it is to carry them. Why is obedience so seductive? Because it removes responsibility. If you obey, you no longer have to decide. You no longer have to face the terror of freedom. If things go wrong, you can blame your ruler, your system, your God. You are innocent. To be free, on the other hand, is to bear the full weight of your choices, to stand naked before the consequences. That is why most people reject freedom when it is offered. They do not want to carry that burden. They want chains to cradle them. The machine also knows how to seduce with hope. It promises that obedience will be rewarded. Work hard now and you will be rich tomorrow. Obey now and you will be rewarded in heaven. Submit now and justice will come later. Hope is the sugar that coats the iron. And when the reward never comes, people do not rebel. They simply tell themselves they did not obey hard enough. This is the brilliance of the machine. It turns victims into accomplices. But the darkest truth is this. Obedience feels like belonging. Humans are terrified of being alone. They long to be part of something larger. And so they bind themselves to nations, religions, ideologies, corporations, not because these things are true, but because they give the illusion of community. To break free from the machine is not just to lose chains, it is to lose the comfort of the herd, and very few are willing to pay that price. This is why revolutions so often fail. People rise against their rulers, but once the old machine is destroyed, they immediately build a new one. Different names, different slogans, but the same structure of obedience. They cannot live without it. They do not know how. And so history repeats. New chains, new masters, same submission. The machine never dies, because humans themselves rebuild it. Here is the cruel irony. The obedience machine is not outside of you. It is inside. It is in your habits, your fears, your longings. You carry it wherever you go. That is why running to another country, another ideology, another job never saves you. The chains reform because you bring them with you. The machine is not just political or economic, it is psychological. And to destroy it, you must first see it within yourself. But most people never will. They are too comfortable, too afraid, too eager to kneel. That is why the machine has lasted for millennia and why it will last for millennia more. Because humans do not just tolerate their chains, they love them. So ask yourself, do you love yours? Do you defend them? Do you dress them up as virtues? Or do you dare to see them as what they are? Comment below if you believe people can ever live without chains, or if obedience is simply in our blood. Subscribe if you want to keep unmasking the illusions that rule your life. Share this with someone who insists they are free, and watch their discomfort when the mirror cracks. Because the obedience machine never stops. It hums in every office, every church, every parliament, every home. And unless you learn to see it, you are already part of it. To understand the obedience machine, you must see how it is perfected by the very institutions that claim to liberate you. Religion, politics, labor, technology, all are dressed as tools of progress, but behind the masks, they are engines that deepen submission. The brilliance of the machine is that it never admits it exists. It wears the face of morality, prosperity, salvation, and innovation. But behind the face is always the same mechanism, making you love your chains. Start with religion, the oldest and most resilient engine of obedience. From the earliest temples to the cathedrals and mosques of today, religion has demanded absolute submission, and it has succeeded not through force, but through promise. Obey the commandments, and you will be saved. Disobey, and you will be damned. The obedience machine does not need whips when it has eternity as leverage. Entire civilizations have knelt, not out of love for life, but out of terror of death. And they defended their chains as holy. They persecuted heretics, silenced dissenters, burned philosophers, all in the name of obedience they believed was virtue. Even today, billions still live under this machine, convinced that chains are sacred, that to be free of them is to be damned. Now look at politics, that more recent cathedral of obedience. Democracy claims to free you, but it is another mask. You are told you have a voice, but only within limits. You may choose between chains painted red or chains painted blue, but the chains remain. Politicians craft enemies to unite you in fear, offer promises they never intend to keep, and distract you with theater so you feel involved. You obey not because you are forced, but because you believe you are choosing. The obedience machine has never been more efficient. It turns submission into participation. Then there is labor, the modern church of obedience. You are told to work not because it enriches your life, but because it gives meaning to your existence. Career is the new religion, with promotions and paychecks as sacraments. You sacrifice your time, your health, your relationships, for the promise of security and success that never truly arrives. The obedience machine thrives here because people defend their chains as if they were opportunities. They post about their sacrifices with pride. They call their cages dream jobs. The machine has convinced them that slavery is fulfillment. And now, the most insidious of all, technology. You believe it has liberated you, but it has only refined the machine to perfection. You carry your chains in your pocket, glowing screens that track your movements, harvest your desires, and feed you distractions to keep you docile. You obey algorithms more faithfully than priests or politicians. They tell you what to watch, what to buy, what to believe, and you obey, not with resentment, but with eagerness. You beg for the newest device, the latest app, the chains that glitter with innovation. The obedience machine no longer needs rulers to enforce submission. You enforce it on yourself, through your compulsions, your scrolling, your addiction to connection. Notice the pattern. Every system that claims to free you only builds tighter chains. Religion promises heaven, politics promises justice, labor promises prosperity, technology promises convenience, but none deliver. They cannot deliver, because their purpose is not liberation but control. The machine does not work when you are free. It only works when you mistake your chains for gifts. The obedience machine also adapts. It knows rebellion will come, so it builds rebellion into itself. When you criticize religion, the machine offers you politics. When you reject politics, it offers you consumerism. When you despise consumerism, it offers you digital escape. Every time you break one chain, another waits, dressed in new symbols, painted with new slogans. The machine is hydra-headed. Cut off one, another grows. This is why revolutions fail. They replace priests with politicians, kings with presidents, bosses with new bosses, but the obedience remains. The machine survives because people cannot imagine life without it. And here is the cruelest truth. The obedience machine does not always enslave you against your will. It flatters you. It tells you that submission makes you good, moral, responsible. It tells you that obeying makes you noble, that kneeling makes you virtuous. And people accept it gladly because it spares them the burden of choice. To obey is to be innocent. To rebel is to be guilty. And most people would rather live guilty in truth than innocent in lies. Even resistance is often absorbed. The machine takes the language of rebellion and turns it into slogans, brands, entertainment. It sells you revolution as fashion, rebellion as lifestyle. You buy your chains in the shape of protest. You chant slogans written by the very powers you think you oppose. And once again, the machine feeds, not on your obedience, but on your illusion of freedom. This is why humanity does not break free. It is not because the rulers are too strong, but because the ruled are too willing. They defend their chains, they polish them, they wear them as ornaments, and when someone dares to break free, the herd turns against them. The obedience machine defends itself through the crowd. It does not need soldiers when the slaves enforce the system themselves. Look at history. Socrates poisoned not by rulers, but by citizens. Galileo silenced not just by church officials, but by a society that preferred obedience to truth. Heretics burned, rebels exiled, thinkers mocked, all by neighbors, by fellow workers, by fellow believers. The machine trains the herd to be its guards. That is why it is so indestructible. It lives not in palaces or parliaments, but in people themselves. So what about you? Do you believe you are free because you criticize? Because you choose between brands, between parties, between creeds? Or do you see that the choices were built into the machine, and that true freedom lies elsewhere? Comment below. Do you think humanity could live without the obedience machine, or would chaos consume us? Subscribe if you want to keep dismantling the illusions that enslave you. Share this with someone who proudly declares their freedom, and let them see the invisible gears turning. Because the obedience machine does not just rule your world, it builds your desires, your fears, your morals. And until you see it, you will keep mistaking your chains for virtues. If you have followed me this far, you already feel the weight of the truth. The obedience machine is not some abstract invention, nor a relic of the past. It is the world you live in, the world you help build, the world you defend with your own words and actions. It is the invisible cathedral of chains, and the most dangerous part is not that people wear chains. It is that they love them. They cherish them as if they were treasures, polish them as if they were crowns. And the question that gnaws in the silence is this: can that love be killed? To kill the love of chains is not a matter of politics. It is not about switching rulers, swapping systems, or trading one ideology for another. The herd has tried this for centuries, and each attempt only reforges the same mechanism. Communism, capitalism, monarchies, democracies, all different banners but the same gears. No, the real battle is not against systems. It is against desire itself, against the psychological need for comfort, belonging, and innocence, against the craving for chains. This is why most people will never escape, because freedom is heavier than chains. Chains give you excuses. Freedom strips them away. Chains give you belonging. Freedom isolates you. Chains give you innocence. Freedom condemns you to guilt. To live without the machine is to stand alone in the storm, without a master to blame, without a herd to shield you, without a script to follow. Very few have the stomach for this. Nietzsche understood it. He called those few the higher men, the ones who create their own values instead of inheriting them. But he also warned that they would be hated, demonized, hunted. Because to stand without chains is to expose the herd's love of slavery. And the herd will always hate the mirror. They will call you dangerous, evil, arrogant, insane. They will say you corrupt, that you destroy, that you undermine morality itself. And in a sense, they will be right. To kill the love of chains is to destroy the morality built upon them. It is to dismantle the very foundation of their obedience. And yet, this is the only path to freedom, to tear away the mask of virtue and admit that most of what people call morality is nothing more than obedience disguised. To strip away the promises of salvation, prosperity, progress, and convenience, and see them for what they are, bait to keep you kneeling. To stop asking for lighter chains, prettier chains, newer chains, and instead to ask whether you need chains at all. The obedience machine cannot be destroyed by the masses. It will always be rebuilt by their hands. It can only be defied by individuals, scattered, solitary, often hated. The few who are willing to carry the burden of freedom without the anesthesia of obedience. They will not lead movements. They will not build new systems. They will live as examples of what it means to exist without chains, even if the price is exile. This is the paradox of freedom. It does not liberate the herd, it liberates you. And in liberating yourself, you expose the herd's refusal to be free. You make their chains visible, and nothing enrages them more than seeing the prison they have decorated as home. So how do you kill the love of chains in yourself? You begin by refusing comfort. You begin by refusing excuses. You begin by refusing to hide behind masters, systems, or gods. You begin by admitting the terrible truth. There is no salvation waiting, no authority to guide you, no herd to protect you. There is only you, your choices, your will. You kill the love of chains by living without the need for them. But understand this: to do so is to become the villain in the story of the herd. Because their morality is built on chains, and your refusal to wear them is seen as rebellion against all that is good. They will call you selfish. They will call you dangerous. They will say you are destroying order, and perhaps you are. But better to destroy false order than to worship it. Better to stand hated and free than loved and enslaved. The obedience machine thrives because people fear this exile. They would rather kneel in comfort than stand alone in clarity. That is why the machine is eternal. It does not need to be forced upon people. They rebuild it willingly, generation after generation, because they cannot imagine life without it. They do not simply obey, they love to obey. And love is the strongest chain of all. So the question returns to you. Do you still love your chains? Do you still dress them as virtues? Do you still polish them with hope and fear? Or are you willing to step into the storm, to bear the weight of freedom, to carry the guilt of choosing, the pain of solitude, the danger of clarity? Because if you are, you will find that even though the herd despises you, the machine cannot touch you. You will be free, even in a world of slaves. And this perhaps is the most terrifying thought. The obedience machine does not die when you escape it. It keeps running, humming with the joy of those who love their chains. But you no longer feed it. You no longer kneel before it. You walk away, carrying nothing but your will. And for the first time, you are alive. Comment below. Do you think you could live without chains, or would freedom be too heavy? Subscribe if you want to keep unmasking the illusions that keep humanity enslaved. Share this with someone who insists they are free, and watch how they defend the machine that holds them. Because the obedience machine will never stop, but you can stop loving it, and in that refusal, the chains shatter.